In this video, we're going to talk about sheet metal, which is a really simple process. Well, I'm sure the people who actually do it would say otherwise, but in its most basic form, what you need to remember is sheet metal is taking a sheet of metal and bending it, and that's it. Of course, you can get more complicated than that, but in its basic form, that's what you're doing. You're just bending a piece of a sheet of metal. Typically, the sheets of metal that you use for sheet metal are somewhere between maybe 30 thousandths of an inch thick up to an eighth of an inch thick. You can certainly get thicker than that, and many do in a lot of applications, but in general, that's probably a range that is common. Sheet metal is often cheaper than machining something. Think about a bracket, an L bracket, for example, that is the same material thickness all throughout. If you were to machine that L bracket, you'd have to remove a lot of material, and it would take some time on the mill. Whereas sheet metal, you're starting off with a flat piece of sheet, and then you're just bending it to achieve that final L shape. So it's a pretty economical process. It's often used in conjunction with welding. You might bend a sheet in a certain way and then weld two edges of that sheet together to produce a more rigid, a stronger junction, and ultimately a stronger, stiffer part. Something to remember about sheet metal is that your part has to have the same wall thickness throughout because it starts from a material that is one single thickness. You can't vary the thickness in a sheet metal part. You have to pick a thickness, and that's all you get to work with for the entire part. These thicknesses are defined by what are called gauge numbers. Something that can be confusing, especially to new students in this area, is that there are different gauge numbers associated with different material, which really can get confusing. So a 12 gauge aluminum sheet is actually a little bit different in thickness than a 12 gauge steel sheet. And there are charts that go over all of these things, so you don't need to memorize them necessarily, just find the right chart. Sheet metal can be used at low quantities or high quantities. There can be some tooling associated with it, but often if you're working with a sheet metal shop, a shop that specializes in doing sheet metal parts, of which there are many, they will have a lot of the tooling already. And so typically you don't need to invest in any tooling to create a sheet metal part. And for that reason, it can be an effective economical approach to creating certain parts. And it can be used for high volume as well. Sheet metal parts are often seen in like the automotive or aerospace industry, applications in which strong parts, metal parts are needed. So that's kind of an overview of sheet metal. If you found this content helpful, consider enrolling in our signature program at mypipelineacademy.com. Whether you're an individual interested in beginning a new career as a mechanical designer or a company interested in training your new engineering hires, our signature program helps students develop the practical skills they need to be productive mechanical design engineers. Seating is limited. We hope to see you there soon.